Hi everybody, I'm Laura Harris-Smith. Welcome to today's Daily Pin Code. You're going to be watching this during the day, but perhaps I should call it tonight's Daily Pin Code because it's night here, as you can see out the window. But I wanted to do it at night because really it was in the middle of the night, actually right here on this patch of carpet, that my healing journey began. And I'm speaking about physical healing. What happened was I needed healing in my body, neurologically, and I came out here in the middle of the night one night. I had been, reading in the Bible all the different verses about where Jesus would heal people and that he was still the same yesterday, today, and forever. And I was finding it all through Scripture. It wasn't like I was listening to this one preacher who was, brainwashing me. And I was at a Baptist church that I loved the people, loved the pastor, had nothing to do with anything except the fact that God was showing me. I'm reading Scripture and I'm going, my life doesn't line up with this. Something's wrong. I either need to throw it all out or let it all in. Well, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to read an excerpt from a book that I just finished where I describe this encounter. The book is called Great Big, and it's the 25-year story of our life, my family's life, and a lot that we've been through. And so I'm going to read this from you because it captures it better than I could ever try to recreate it right now. I talk about getting up in the middle of the night and coming out here just to pray. I had a lot on my mind concerning the topic of healing. And I needed healing neurologically and wasn't quite sure if God wanted that for me. I knew he could heal. I didn't know who he selected to heal because I saw evidence that people prayed and didn't get well. And you've seen that too. That's really why we're studying this topic. So here's from the book. Then I played what I called Scripture Roulette. You open the Bible and point randomly, promising to yourself to study whatever verse you find despite its seeming insignificance. So I was doing that and reading, not praying, just studying. Reading like you would study for a test or scour a cookbook for recipe ingredients. The heart was resting while the head was compiling mental notes to eventually convert into faith. Suddenly, a sensation came over me that I never had before. It took me by surprise because it affected my physical body, my molecular structure or something. Sort of like how you can sense somebody is near you whether you look up or not. Sort of like if you have your eyes closed, you can still tell when someone approaches by the way the air around you changes and the atmosphere is altered. It's like the air sounds different all of a sudden and every moment gets big. Couple that with a weighty awe that starts at your head, and as you close your eyes, it moves down your entire body like a scanner moves down the document it's scanning. You feel examined, probed, weighed, and known. You feel heavier, sort of like the opposite of what an astronaut would describe as he leaves the Earth's atmosphere and becomes weightless. You're aware of all that's mortal about you, but feel accepted because you realize you're in the presence of the one who made you that way. You feel understood, awakened, challenged, satisfied, unsure, but safe. All this has taken place in about 5 seconds, giving the human mind just enough time to figure out what is transpiring. Majestically, a king has entered the room, and you feel the urge to keep your head low. I had heard the king analogy before about God, but actually it didn't do this experience justice, because to me, earthly kings are just men, and therefore all the protocol surrounding their entrances and exits is somewhat extreme and overboard, in my opinion. This was different, therefore. You knew in your knower that you were with God and that he had a million other places he could be at the moment, and probably was, but that he chose to visit with you right there, right then. That alone deserved gratitude. At this point, I actually bent over, fully prostrate with my face to the floor, and I dared not open my eyes. I remember vividly having the thought that if I did, my flesh would melt. I was afraid that I would see him, and since it said somewhere in Scripture that I couldn't do that and live, I stayed very still with eyes shut. I felt like all the breath went out of me. That was a big one. I felt like all the breath went out of me. I didn't need to breathe, in fact. I don't remember breathing once during all of this, although I'm sure I did. After I deliberately went to my face, everything intensified even more, and I was totally unable to get up, even if I'd wanted to. In the Bible, when Daniel said, "While he was saying this to me, I bowed my face toward the ground and was speechless. How can I, your servant, talk with you, my Lord? My strength is gone and I can hardly breathe." That's Daniel 10, 15, and 17. It describes this event exactly. Also, John said in Revelation 1, while on the island of Patmos, "When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead." That's verse 17. Ezekiel said it best, though. "And behold, the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord, and I fell on my face." That's Ezekiel 44:4. Oh my gosh, I had no idea this kind of stuff still happened today. I think I pictured it only happening to people in robes and sandals. All was still and reverent. What was he here for? Was he just looking at me? Couldn't he do that from heaven? Was he going to do something? Suddenly a love washed over me that gave me the grace and confidence to speak. There was one question I had to know the answer to, and here was my chance. His positioning in front of me was literally that real. I said it, the question that was on my mind. "Lord, do you really want to heal me?" I didn't ask if he was going to or if he would, but if he wanted to. I wanted only what he wanted. And then came the most penetrating voice in the universe, the voice that had formed the universe. And it was louder than audible. It's like my skin had ears, my heart had ears, even my insides had ears. I was all ears for sure. He said, "Yes, my daughter, and I have already begun to heal you, but it will be by process." Those 17 words were instantly engraved upon my heart. He had said yes. He had also said by process. But surely that wasn't the important part. I thought maybe he meant we were going to stay right here for a few days until he finished scanning and healing me. I was overjoyed. I remember thinking, I could wait 3 or 4 days for anything. I loved him so much right at that moment. I now knew how it was possible to not be sad about death and about all those you would leave behind. I now understood why there would be no tears in heaven. That part always seemed impossible to me since I knew I would miss my family so. Now I had a taste of eternity. Plus, I had heard God's promise of healing. He had won my heart a second time. It was as if I'd been born again. Little did I know those last 2 words of what he spoke were the most important of the 17. I basked in his presence for a few more moments, and then it lifted. I felt normal again. Was that it? Was that all he showed up to say? It was enough. It's the one question I'd wanted answered. I was so excited I didn't even consider it strange that I had chosen that one question out of every other thing I could have inquired about as the King of Kings was standing there in my living room. When's the world going to end? When are you returning for your people? When am I going to die? How many kids am I going to have? How about solving world hunger? But it was okay, and he didn't care. I suddenly realized he had actually shown up to answer that question before I had ever asked it. He knew I wanted to. It made me love him even more. All right, this is going really long, so I'm going to ask you to tune back in tomorrow to hear the conclusion of this little story. I'm Laura Harris Smith. I hope that you remember 1 Corinthians 14, 31, and 39, which says, "For you can all prophesy in turn, so that all may be instructed and encouraged. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, be eager to prophesy."